Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. If you want something, go get it. Period. Well, this is a line from the brilliant movie which released in 2006 called The Pursuit of Happyness. The movie is based on the life of American billionaire Chris Gardner. So it is inspired by the true story of this iconic man. Today is the day of Friday matinee, and we are going to review this movie and see this incredible story of Chris Gardner. So let's begin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, in whichever part of the world that you are. And welcome to Learnamytes, where learning is for all and all that we do is for learning. Today, we are going to review The Pursuit of Happyness. And we are going to learn, as I said in the introduction, from the incredible story of iconic American businessman Chris Gardner. Pursuit of Happyness released in 2006, and the title role of Chris Gardner was played by yet another brilliant Hollywood actor, Will Smith. Along with Will Smith, it was Thandie Newton who played Will Smith's wife, Chris Gardner's wife, Linda. It was Brian Hovey who played a very important character called Jay Hustle, and it was Junior Will Smith or Jaden Smith who played the role of Christopher Gardner. Now, if you look at the story was very, very simple. It was the story of a common man, and the name of the man is Chris Gardner. So this story or the movie goes in parts. So let's go through the first part. As Chris Gardner says, this part of his life is known as riding the bus. So Chris is someone who makes a living by selling of bone density scanners. The bone density scanners is something which is a kind of a sophisticated X-ray device, but most of the hospitals and doctors find it a bit expensive, and that's the reason why Chris is not able to sell it off. Chris has actually signed up for these bone density scanners, so he has kind of taken a dealership, but he's somehow not able to sell it and meet ends. His wife Linda works with a hotel as a staff, and it's his son who's about 4 or 5 years old, who Chris drops every day at the daycare center. On his way to the daycare center, he finds it weird that the spelling of happiness is not H-A-P-P-I-N-E-S-S, but it is happiness is spelled with H-A-P-P-Y. So he always has an argument, kind of a funny argument with the daycare center and the staff at the daycare center. Now life goes on and Chris is lost. He's unable to meet both the ends. His wife is always behind him, and his wife feels that he's not really putting in that effort and he's not able to make money. That's the only challenge, possibly one of the challenges, or the only challenge which is there in Chris's otherwise wonderful life, is what he thinks. Chris is very attached to his son. He loves his son to the teeth, and he believes that it's actually he met his father for the first time when he was 28, and that's the reason why he is not going to let his son away from him. While riding the bus one fine day, he gets down from the bus and he is walking on the road, and he sees a wonderful luxurious red car, a red sports car, very expensive one. As the man gets out of the car, walks out of the car, he asks the man that what do you do and how do you do it? So he wants to know that what is the amount of money and how does he make so much money to be able to afford such a wonderful car. Now the man tells him that I work as a stockbroker with a company called Dean Witter and Reynolds. So right outside the office of Dean Witter and Reynolds, he sees this man for the very first time, and he gets to hear this word stockbroker. The story is about, the year is about 1981. Now Chris is really curious to know that what is a stockbroker all about. So he goes to the Dean Witter office and he asks them about how does one become a stockbroker and what kind of education one needs, so on and so forth. They give him a form and they tell him that you have to appear for an interview. You'll be selected as an intern and basis your performance after 6 months. After you pass an examination, you will be selected out of a class of 20 to work as a stockbroker. Now Chris, someone who is very determined, decides to take up this opportunity. He meets Jay for the very first time over there, and Jay tells him that you'll have to appear for an internship interview tomorrow, and that's about it. And then we'll decide whether we can take you as an intern. Now Chris, as I mentioned earlier, is unable to meet both the ends. Now what he does is he strikes a deal with the owner of his apartment that he will paint the apartment, and in return he will be allowed to pay the rent, or he'll be allowed to delay delay the payment of the rent, which he is not able to pay anyways. So while Chris is painting the house, suddenly the police come at his door and they pick him up, and he's taken to a police station because he has not paid his parking tickets. So his car is seized and he's taken to the jail. Now the next morning he's supposed to appear for the dean return interview. Somehow the next morning he manages to appear for the interview with the same clothes. So he's wearing actually a ganji, and he's wearing a jacket, and all over his body, his face, everything, there are those stains of paint. The Dean Witter gang, the team, they find it a little weird, but they decide to hire him for his honesty. Now after this, the next part, which Chris calls, as the story moves on, is called stupidity. Now what happens is, one fine day, he is now trying to match both the things. So he's trying to match his internship and preparation for the internship, which demands him a lot of work. At the same time, he's also trying to match up by selling off those bone density scanners. So while this, one fine day, he just loses one of his bone density scanners to a hippie girl, and she just takes it away. Chris runs behind her, and then there is that whole ruckus which is created. Meanwhile, Linda declares that I'm going to leave you, and she literally leaves Chris. So now Chris is left with Christopher, his 5 or 6 year old toddler. He was a very cute little angel, and he's also very smart. Now Christopher demands a basketball on his birthday, and Chris manages to get him a basketball. And during the scene, during one of my favorite scenes, Chris tells Christopher that, look Christopher, I was also below average when I used to play basketball, but so just like me, you're also going to be like that. This disheartens young Christopher. That's why Chris realizes and says those lines with which I introduced today's video, is that don't ever let somebody tell you can't do something. If you have a dream, if you got a dream, you got to protect it. So slowly but surely, there is a change in Chris. Chris realizes that he needs to get out of this ordinary life. The next part of his life, which as the story moves on, is called as internship, where Chris is shown to be making almost 20 to 30 calls a day. He's really working hard, trying to sell the bone density scanners, and all this is happening in parallel. And at the same time, he also has to take care of Christopher, bathing him, and Christopher gets injured, and there's a lot of running around which happens. Meanwhile, Chris has not paid the rent, and so finally he has to vacate the house. He goes to a motel and stays in a low-cost motel. Again, he's not able to pay the rent of the low-cost motel, and finally they throw him off from there. And then he goes to a place, in search of a place for homeless people. Now this part of the life he calls as internship, and one very interesting thing that happens during this period is he meets one of the prospective investors called Mr. Ribbon. Mr. Ribbon is a wealthy man, and Mr. Ribbon, along with his son, takes Christopher and Chris to a baseball game on a given Sunday. Now, this is where Chris realizes that this is what happiness is according to him, because he sees young Christopher is super excited, sitting for the first time in a box seats, and is really enjoying the game. And that is where Chris again makes this resolution that I'm going to come out of it. I'm going to give all that my son wants. Now, while slowly things are settling down, both Christopher and Chris are at the motel, and like I said earlier, now he also has to vacate the motel and he has to struggle to find a place. And there's a facility nearby which is called Glide, where they allow homeless people to stay on a daily basis. So every day he has to reach at a certain point and get a place, secure a place in Glide. Now, it so happens that one day he misses getting a place in Glide, in the place for the homeless people. He's left with $21.33 in his bank, and this part of his life, as he says, is called paying taxes. When I watched the movie for the first time, I was moved after watching this part of the story, as Chris Gardner says, called paying taxes. Now, he has to spend that night at a metro station. He, along with his young son, Christopher, he kind of creates a facade. Chris builds a story, and they lock the bathroom at the metro station and they spend the night at the bathroom. Chris weeps profusely while his son Christopher falls asleep. Why I said it moved me was I could sense the disappointment, I could sense the frustration, I could really go through that scene, and hats off to the brilliant Will Smith for pulling off this scene with ease. You become a part of the story of Chris Gardner. You start rooting for Chris Gardner. Now somehow he manages, on the second day, he manages to find a place at Glide, which is for the homeless people. That's why there is a Christmas carol going on, a kind of a Christmas carol, which says, "Oh God, don't move the mountain, give me the strength to climb it." While the song is going on, while the people at the Glide are performing the song, Chris is weeping. There are these emotions going through his mind, and somehow now he realizes that he has to get this internship at Dean Witter, and he is now going to leave no stone unturned. And likewise, on the day of the examination, he puts all his soul and heart, and he finally gets through the examination. So after all this riding the bus and stupidity and internship and paying taxes, the last part of the story, what Chris Gardner calls, or Chris calls in the movie, is called happiness. Where he's called for the final discussion by the Dean Witter and Co. team, the core team, along with obviously Mr. J, who is also one of the panelists, and they tell him that from tomorrow, wear a shirt, because you will be working with Dean Witter and Co. as an intern. Chris claps and claps and claps and applauds, walks out of the office and gets into the crowd. And that's why he says, this little part of my life is called happiness. When I watch this scene, or rather, let me confess that whenever I'm down, personally, in my profession, I watch this scene, or rather, I would say I watched this movie, The Pursuit of Happyness. This is one of my favorite movies, because I find that this movie kind of moves you. It gives you that confidence, it gives you that belief that yes, you can do it. So finally, if we look at the learnings from this movie, but before that, I think let's go through some trivia. Trivia of the movie, like I said, the star himself, the man who plays Chris Gardner with finesse, the brilliant Will Smith, who was nominated almost for each and every award under the sun, including Academy, BAFTA, all the prestigious awards for the best actor. I was quite surprised that in 2006, how did he lose? But anyways, that's not the point here. But he was brilliant in the movie. Apart from it, it was actually his real life son, Jaden Smith, who played the role of Christopher, as I mentioned earlier. The other trivia was this movie was directed by Gabriel Musino, and the story was written, it was based on Chris Gardner's book, but the story was adapted into motion picture by a gentleman called Stephen Conrad. This was the true story of Chris Gardner, and I think one of the best trivia which I found was towards the end of it, towards the last scene. When the last scene rolls, as Chris and Christopher, they're walking down, chatting, and they're now having a good time because now Chris is settled. That's why the real-time Christopher Gardner, just passes by. It was amazing to see the real-time Chris Gardner. So, what were the learnings from this movie? Like I said earlier, this movie is full of hope. This movie is about inspiration. So, number one, hope and inspiration. Number two, this movie is about love. What can a father do, or what can a parent do to make his or her son or daughter happy, is what the whole movie is all about. Number three, in Pursuit of Happiness, the title itself. Now this Pursuit of Happiness is what Chris says in the movie is happiness is something which you can find within. You always try to seek it, but you can find it within. I mean, that's what the whole idea is. This idea of the Pursuit of Happiness was part of the Declaration of Independence of the third US President Thomas Jefferson. And they have also, the references have also been given in the movie. So this was about the Pursuit of Happiness, the third learning. The fourth learning, I would say, rather, it was the 3D principle according to me. It was determination, discipline and dedication. So Chris's dedication to meet the ends, to take care of Christopher, to take care of selling off those bone density scanners because he has to, otherwise there is no choice. And also at the same time work really hard, clock in those hours, make those calls as an intern, finally to get that job or to secure that job with Dean Witter and Co. And all this goes on for almost 6 to 8 months. And during that period, again, he is homeless, as I said earlier. So this is what I believe Pursuit of Happiness, the Pursuit of Happiness is all about. You can watch this movie on Netflix, and please let us know, in case you have already watched this movie, what did you feel? What was the scene that moved you? Or what did you really enjoy about this wonderful story of Chris Gardner? So thank you so much. This is Girish signing off. Please like, share and subscribe to Learnamytes. Share this video as much as you can and see you next week with yet another video. Thank you so much.